I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Monday, July the 11th, brought to you in part by Joplin Regional Stockyards. Another big yearling special here at Joplin, starting today, early. They will be going well before 6 o'clock in the morning, people. They've got 10,000 head on offer, and it's hot. They're going to get them through there and get it done. With trying to keep as many cattle from getting hot as they can. Of course, they got a roof over the whole thing, and they'll do it right. But they will be on loads of yearlings by 8 o'clock in the morning, and they've got 100 loads of yearlings again. You remember just a few weeks ago they had a big yearling special. Then they had the Big Bang Primetime Livestock video. But here today, Monday, they've got another big yearling special with 100 loads or more of yearlings coming off that fescue for the most part. This time of year, it's good to get those cattle off that fescue. You guys know that the endophytes in that fescue grass kind of hard on the cattle, and it's worst right now in the dog days of summer. So that fescue grass is good for cattle marketers because it keeps cattle moving all the time. You get those cattle off of that fescue grass. In a lot of cases you clip it, and then you've got good late summer fall grazing also. But big yearling special. You guys, you cattle feeders, you guys that have orders for feeder cattle and you want true yearlings, green grass yearlings, get on to Joplin, get to Joplin, call somebody there, or go on to dvauction.com, view and bid Joplin Regional Stockyards yearling special here today, Monday. Long trailer lines in Texas, and I'm sure most of you guys that are active on social media have seen these lines, and they're just unbelievable. If you guys have ever been in the auction business, been around sale barns, I was in the auction business. We owned a sale barn for a time, worked in many auctions. You love a long trailer line, but I have never seen trailer lines like the ones that I've seen here lately. And like I said, it kind of blew up on social media, especially the one they had Saturday at Emory, Texas, at Emory Livestock Auction. That is East Texas, but not extreme East Texas. It's just kind of on the fringe there. Most people think that anything that's east of Dallas is East Texas, and that's kind of what we think. But Emory's not that much farther east of Dallas, so it's not for, completely out there by Louisiana and Arkansas, but it is on the eastern side of Dallas. It is dry. The entire state of Texas is horrible dry. I've traveled the state of Texas a bunch here this summer. It's dry. It's probably the worst in the hill country in San Antonio area down there. Fredericksburg, all in that country, getting over there west towards Junction. Terrible. And it's just really bad. Of course, you get back over there in central Texas, and like I said, working towards that eastern side, they're not used to it. We're dry up here in the Texas Panhandle. We're used to it. We've actually had a few spotty rains here the last 4 or 5 weeks, and maybe get a little bit of rain here or there, but real spotty. But it actually doesn't look as bad as what it did a month and a half or so ago, because we have a few spotty rains and we're not used to much moisture. But you get down there in that Dallas area, central Texas, and the outskirts around central Texas, especially South Texas, they're used to a lot of rain. So when they get no rain, it's terrible. The ponds and creeks have dried up. Hearing stories of a lot of wells that have gone dry. They've got no way to water those cattle because most of those pastures don't have wells on them. Whenever they run out of water, they've got to move cattle. Also, they can't afford hay, and a lot of those pastures are grubbed completely out, and they don't have anything for those cattle to eat. They've got to move them. Hay is exorbitant. You can't afford it. And a lot of people are not even able to put up what little dry hay they got, because everything costs so much, and diesel costs so much, everything costs so much, but there's been not enough growth to really put any up. And so we're just against it now. So you remember about 30 years ago, there was a horrible dry summer in Texas. I remember I was a trainee market reporter for USDA up in South St. Paul, Minnesota that summer, and they had cow buyers going from Minnesota down into Texas, especially on those Saturday sales, to buy cows. Well, we're that bad again. It is terrible. But you know, when you've got trailers lined up 100 deep or more, pickups and trailers 100 deep to unload or to sale, and it happened on a Saturday sale in particular. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of weekend warriors, but some people are saying, oh, you know, those guys don't have that much stock. You start adding that up, it adds up to a lot of stock. They're usually selling somewhere short of 2,000 at Emory Livestock Auction on a typical week in the summer. They had 3,500 there on Saturday. They sold until 5 o'clock in the morning. They had 527 sellers. The Forrester family there that's got that sale barn there, and have done a good job with that sale for a long, long time. Of course, I talked to somebody in the area that I knew, which is my dear friend Ellison Carter. He works that sale every week. He's got buyers in that sale, and asked him kind of how it was going. He said, you know, the market might have been a little bit softer because of the big supplies, but he said at the same time they had a couple of new faces come in there, which always stirs the pot a little bit. And he said it really wasn't much cheaper at all to measure there. But you know, the cow market's still pretty good, so a lot of those people were getting along fairly well, but they probably did not want to have to sell as many cattle as they did. But of course, they didn't have a sale the previous week, which that makes them have a little bit bigger sale. But it was just kind of eye-opening to see over 100 pickups and trailers sitting in that line, and it was unbelievable to watch. And I even heard that the local volunteer fire department come out and help direct traffic. They run that trailer line through a nearby fairgrounds to kind of get them off the highway a little bit. But small farming community there, and they did a good job supporting their local sale barn. And local sale barns are what holds those small ag communities together, guys. That is why I push and push and push for Cattle Price Discovery and Transparency Act. That's why I push and promote sale barns all the time. I tell you what, those sale barns hold those small communities together. But Ellison Carter there told me they bought a lot of cattle this week, especially the last 3 days of the week once the sales got going again. And give me a rundown on them. You guys say, well, you know, I'd like to get my hands on some of those cattle. If you guys have grass or silage or hay or something for cattle to eat, cattle are worth a lot of money. Pounds of cattle are worth a lot of money, and it's going to get higher yet. So you want to be able to get some cattle bought as cheap as you can. I know these prices are getting back up there. These yearlings out in the Flint Hills and especially further up north are bringing as high prices as we've seen since 2015, coming off the highest prices we've ever seen in the history of the world, which was 2014. And you need to get your hands on some cattle that might make some money, and if you would like to order some of those calves coming out of those drought out areas there, and you can get your hands on quite a few of them. Talked to Ellison Carter. He shipped a lot of cattle on Sunday, and he gave me a rundown on what he shipped. These are loads of cattle, delivered prices to western Oklahoma, Texas Panhandle, places like that. So that gives you an idea of, depending on where you live, what it would cost to get this. But these are delivered prices. Steers and bulls, 260-pound load, $176, and these would be sure good enough cattle to go anywhere. I mean, no, they're not going to be Bassett, Nebraska, but they're not going to have humps and speckles all over them, guys. Going to be solid colored cattle. 325-pound load of steers and bulls at $175. 440-pound load at $161. Load of 550-pound steers at $151. Now here's some plainer ones that he did acknowledge would be pretty plain, but they're still cattle, got 4 legs and a tail, 4 stomachs. Load at 630 pounds, plain at $115. They sound pretty cheap at that. Here's a load of fancy yearling steers, mostly all black, weigh 7 1/4 at $164. Now to compare that with some other prices around, guys, and that's the delivered price. And a load of 850-pound yearling steers at $116. On the heifer side, 260-pound load of heifers, $162. 330-pound load at $160. Some fancy replacements, and these were purchased for replacement. 485-pound load of heifers at $161. Now some plainer types weighed 495 at $147. Some plainer type heifers a little bigger, weighing 570 at $140. Back to good cattle, 630-pound load at $135, and 915-pound load of heifers at $110. If that sounds pretty good to you, check them out, EllisonCarterCattle.com. Let's talk about some things that are going on in the politics, I guess you could say, of cattle business. Sysco Corporation, which is the largest food service corporation that we have in this country, they have joined several others and have filed suit against the Big Four packer for price fixing. But basically it was more of what I say they always do, which they don't even argue that they do, which is managing supplies. But what they think that they got together and fixed the supply by not slaughtering as many cattle as what they would normally do to jack the box beef prices up. And that's one reason we see the big disparity we have over the last probably 7 years or so of big price disparity between what cattle are worth and what beef is worth. But Sysco Corporation, biggest food service corporation in the country, they're not going to just file a frivolous lawsuit there. But what else is going on in the politics? I noticed that the Canadian Cattlemen's Association, going all the way back to 1932, and they boast 60,000 members, they have decided to change their name for gender inclusion. It's a woke nature, and you think we're woke down here. I've got several Canadian friends up there, and they said it's worse up here, people, and evidently it is. Canadian Cattlemen's Association has changed their name to just Canadian Cattle Association because they want to be more gender inclusive. Wow. I've been to Canada on cattle trips, and I've met a lot of people in Canada that raise cattle, ranchers, backgrounders, sale barn people, and I didn't talk to any of them before I said this, but I know there's not one, and some of them were women ranchers. I know there's not one that would have been for this action. But it's just it's a woke time in our lives, I guess, and we think our country's woke. They're even worse. But now it's a Canadian Cattle Association. Sounds like a bunch of cattle are running it, I guess. But also, if you look at one of their underlings there, Saskatchewan Cattle Growers Association has asked the government, both the province and federal government, to look into the imbalance in the price of cattle and the price of beef in Canada. So, you know, I'm not dreaming this stuff up, this Cattle Price Discovery and Transparency Act and everything that I preach on here. It's going on all over the world, people, and everybody's noticed it, and you know, it's as you know, clear as your nose on your face. Everybody knows what's going on here. Trying to get somebody to do something about it is difficult. What else is going on? Let's talk about Western Video Market having their biggest sale of the year. Reno, Nevada at Silver Legacy. Big sale. 140,000 head, including about 10,000 head of sheep that they're going to sell Tuesday afternoon. But get on to that sale. WVMcattle.com. They've got, like I said, about 10,000 sheep they'll sell Tuesday afternoon. About 14 lots of breeding stock that they'll sell Wednesday afternoon when they get done with all the feeder cattle. But you want to get in here Monday morning and check that sale out. The highest priced cattle that they'll have, the wholesale, are going to sell Monday before noon, but that sale starts at 9 o'clock Central, that's 7 o'clock Pacific. But they're going to start out with those Rocky Mountain and Northern Plains cattle. So the Nebraska cattle, the Colorado cattle, the Montana cattle that they have are all going to be selling, and those will be wean calves and mostly all yearlings. They'll be selling Monday morning, and we're going to test the market on those best cattle in the world, the best feeding cattle that you can buy anytime. And I've told you before, you know, those summer grass yearlings are where it's at if you want to feed really high performing cattle. Let's talk about your board for last week. August live cattle futures, of course, Monday was the 4th. Tuesday was down $1.67. Wednesday was up $1.57, so brought that back. Thursday was up a nickel. Friday down 60 cents, with August live cattle futures ending the week at 133.95. That was down 65 cents for the week. October ended the week at 138.95. August feeder cattle, Monday was the 4th. Tuesday was down $1.80. Wednesday was up 60. Thursday down 82. Friday down 75. Guys are blowing their brains out for cattle at videos and yearling specials all over the country. And your August feeder cattle board was down $2.77 for the week. Still ending at a premium of what the market is now, but as you go farther out, it's going to get higher. But 170, 172 ending the week for August feeder cattle contracts. September ended at 174.72. Fat cattle trade through Thursday of last week, only 56,100 head, and hardly any traded on Friday. I tell you, the more you get negotiated and the more negotiated sales you make, the higher the market. When you don't have a lot of negotiated sales, the market is cheaper. Well, the market was cheaper last week, and it shouldn't have been, and people didn't want to sell, and so packers didn't get very many cattle bought. They're going to be short bought going into this week. The guys in the north that have the leverage are probably going to get more money. The guys in the south, it's a crapshoot. Who knows what's going to happen there. But in your 5-area feeding region last week, you had live steers and heifers selling from 135.5 to 150. In the northern plains, it was 144 and higher. In the southern plains, it was mostly 137. But you know, a $10 to $12 spread is crazy. Your weighted average on live steers in your 5-area feeding region, 144.37. Dress sales 230 to 238, and both the weighted average on your live and your dressed were from $1.50 to $2 lower. Your weighted average on dressed steers was 230, 230 up through Thursday there, and then Friday we had a little dab of trade, but not much business like we thought we would see, because they just slowed down. And they just pulled more contracts and more formula cattle, and they just decided they weren't going to buy very many last week because they didn't want to give more for them. Iowa, about 1,200 head on Friday, just under 17,000 for the week. They've been doing 30,000 guys, but on Friday's confirmed sales 147 to 150. Dress sales from 230 to 232. Nebraska only a couple hundred on Friday confirmed. 23,000 for the week. Just dress trade from 230 to 232. Kansas about 600 head, less than 11,000 for them last week. That's nothing for them. All live sales at 137. Texas about 500 head and less than 8,000 for the week. Live sales at 137. Box beef cutout values were mixed last week, and we're just bouncing around here and there. We did have one day that they were up quite a bit, but your choice cuts weighted average on all of last week's sales were up $1.46 at 267.17 weighted average. Weighted average on the select cuts from all of last week's sales was down 27 cents from the previous week at 241.81. Choice select spread of just under $25.50. Very limited sales there, just 446 loads of cuts, grinds, and trimmings. Your slaughter, pretty handy, 593,000 for a holiday week. Everything was shut down on Monday, but that 88,000 head Saturday, this past Saturday, caught a lot of that up. Really can't compare it with the 636 that we had the previous week, which was probably curbed a little bit because of the approaching holiday, because it was such a big holiday weekend. But that 593,000 was 12,000 more than the same holiday week a year ago. Let's talk about your feeder cattle markets, your real-time index on DV auction. Late at the end of the week, 166.64. That was almost $1 lower than what it ended the previous week. But we did have some impressive sales, and I'm going to tell you about them in a minute. Don't forget Lone Star Stockyards, Wildorado, Texas, just west of Amarillo, right on I-40 there. My good friend Bill Martin there, he said that they're going to have over 2,000 head there, mostly yearlings. And you want to get on that sale, you get on that sale, dvauction.com. You can go out to Wildorado and join that sale. I think he normally starts at around 11 o'clock in the morning, but kind of a yearling special there at Lone Star Stockyards. You guys know that I always feature sale barns because that's what we do this for, is to promote selling cattle at auction, whether it's through a video or through a brick and mortar sale. But we always talk about the market of the month. This time, the Zoetis market of the month is Bassett Livestock Auction. You guys can guess why that is. They're the ones that reminded us at this day and time that we can get prices that are approaching record levels that we haven't seen since 2015, as they were coming down, like I mentioned earlier, from 2014. But Bassett Livestock does such a great job there. They've got the best cattle in the world, and nobody argues that, because they are. The best cattle in the world from their customers that consign there, and they do such a good job marketing them. So many of those cattle will put on quite a bit of freight, and they will go to western Iowa to feed, because they want to feed the very best cattle that they are, and they do the best job feeding them, and that's why they can negotiate for prices that are $10, $12, $15 higher than what the guys in the Southern Plains do. But congratulations to Bassett Livestock Auction. Let's talk about some of your other markets. Your cash feeders last week were not well tested, really, because we didn't have any early week high volume sales. We did have one fairly high volume sale middle of the week, which is OKC West in El Reno, Oklahoma. They did call that market on feeders $4 to $6 higher than the previous week, so that was a heck of a good mark there. Did see that we are seeing some direct cattle trade in the Flint Hills and the Osage. I told you guys I would give you a heads up on that. They are selling cattle, and they've probably sold half the cattle out there already. It's kind of like whenever they trade the fat cattle. Once they start falling, they're like dominoes and they all fall. But Flint Hills steers delivering now through the end of August, pretty much, 8 weights, selling from 170 to 175. And I've heard of a deal or two a little bit higher than that, or bringing the top of that a little bit heavier than that, weighing up 2.9 and or maybe a pinch over. But for the most part, 170 to 175, 8 weight steers weighing all the way at 800 to 900 pounds, direct basis. Some spayed heifers, you could say probably 2 to 3 to maybe as much as 5 cents back, but should really only be about 2 or 3 cents back. Heifers, if you got them turned out not spayed, that's going to be more like $12 or $15 back for those. But I told you what I'd give you, what I'm hearing on, and that's several different feedlots that are buying those, and several different order buyers that are out there working that give me that information. So sure, not sticking anybody out that. Then of course, you know, your cattle that are all black or northern type cattle, they're going to be at the higher end of the spread, and the plainer you get them, the lower they're going to be, but still in a narrow spread, just $5 spread on all the cattle that are turned out in the Flint Hills and the Osage. And we've got a $13 to $15 spread on fat cattle between the northern plains and the southern plains. I think your guys that are background and feeders are doing a better job marketing them. Of course they are, because we have more negotiations and we have auctions and we have video auctions and we have things like that to tell us what the market is all the time. But that's great that people are selling them in the country too. Like I said before, you can flag a car down on that Kansas Turnpike and sell a load or 2 or 5 or 10 of yearlings, because that's how many people are out there looking for them. It's competition. They're negotiating that trade. Talk about your big sales late in the week. Fort Scott, Kansas. Fort Scott Livestock had over 2,000 head. Really good sale. You look at this automated market report out of Fort Scott, Kansas. You can see it's fairly well tested, including some pretty big drives of calves there. But I want to look at your feeders there. 271 head of 8-weight feeder steers, averaged 860 with a weighted average price of $164.69. 180 head of 9-weight steers. Most of these are being loads. 933 pounds on the average. Weighted average price of $158.06. Big strings of heifers and the 8 weights, 165 head of 8-weight heifers, averaged 814 with a weighted average price of $154.25. Pretty stout on heifers. A few individual quotes. How about Wahoo Livestock, Wahoo, Nebraska? 134 head of steers, weighed 813 in Wahoo and 179.50. How about Dairy Country? Bloomington Livestock Exchange in Bloomington, Wisconsin sells 60 head, 876 pound steers at $176. But your Zoetta stick-out sale of the day was at Lexington Livestock Market last Friday, Lexington, Nebraska. They had a lot of big long strings in there, including 726 head of 1,018 pound steers, bring 169.25. And they also included our top sale of the day, National Beef Wire top quote from the day, come out of Lexington Livestock Market, 293 head, 969 pound steers at $175.85. And that's your feeder flash for Monday.